Okay. Good morning, everybody. And this is our fourth session of Wandering Through the Big Book. First session, we reviewed these opening words, and the opening words are real important for me because I just find that being clear about my primary purpose makes everything go better. And the primary purpose of this stuff is to try to get people more deeply aware of what this book says and where it says it, in order to, one, enhance your own recovery, two, increase your confidence that you can help other people come into relationship with God simply by reading the book together and doing what the book says to do, pretty much in the order that it says to do it. And three, to use both of those things to help us become trusted servants of our fellowship so that we can strengthen the fellowship and ensure its work into the future. So second session, we started talking about the study guide. This is a 190-something page document that's in 15 PDFs. There's a PDF for each step, and there's an additional 2 PDFs for fear and selfish sex conduct in step 4, and then there's this introduction, which is what we've been working our way through. And the study guide is designed to accompany something like this for a person to work on their own and also work in a small group. There are 25 meetings laid out. Each meeting has a reading and some homework questions, and so that's there. So we're working our way through the introduction to this thing. So that third session, we really, but part of the point of it was to get oriented to the book, to look at the table of contents, and particularly with a view of understanding that in this approach, step 1 is the doctor's opinion, Bill's story, there is a solution, more about alcoholism. Step 2 is we agnostics. Steps 3 and 4 are in how it works. Steps 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 are in chapter 6, into action, and the whole rest of the book is about step 12. And so this session, we're dealing specifically with the AA's symbol, the circle with the triangle inside, and the 3 sides of the triangle are labeled with unity, recovery, and service. And that's all summarized on this page 20 of the introduction. And I noticed this morning that sometimes, I noticed this morning that a very important component skipped to another page. There's a page 21 in the PDF that I saw. So you may or may not, anyway, the page 20 I'm looking at has 3 columns, one for physical, one for mental, one for spiritual. Going down the left-hand side is giving these aspects a name, declaring a symptom by which we know that we have this aspect of the disease, what the book proposes as a treatment for this aspect of the disease, because that's going to change as we go through it. And finally, what the promises of treatment are in case you're having trouble deciding between your only 2 alternatives. You know, that reading says if you're a real alcoholic, you only have 2 choices. You know, I don't know if you canvass people in meetings and what they'd say about this, but I think you'd find a lot of people that think like they have more than 2 choices. They can be somewhere in the middle. This one says either you are going on to the bitter end, keeping doing what you're doing and keeping getting the results of what you're doing, or you accept spiritual help. Those are the words it uses. Step 3 is going to say, or how it works, as being willing to grow along spiritual lines. When we get to the 3rd step decision, it has a number of levels, but the earliest level is just the decision to proceed with steps 4 through 9. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time trying to establish the overall goal here, just because I think for all of us, it's easy to get confused. What am I doing? You know, how often do you hear people, when they're struggling with the demands of the program, they're questioning, is this all worth it? You know, do I really want to do this stuff? And so I know for me, when I get into trouble, it can be really important to get back to some fundamental concepts. And the most fundamental concept for me is in we agnostics, that I can wish to be moral. I can wish to be philosophically comforted. Isn't that an amazing phrase? You know, philosophically comforted means I can rely on my brain, my mind, my thinking to make me feel comfortable, you know, feel that I'm living, I'm doing the best I can. I'm living okay. And somehow we mentally put our lives into some sort of psychological framework that makes us feel okay, because most of us have not felt okay. We've rarely felt okay. I could only feel okay under the influence. I could not feel okay sober. You know, I love when people say, I didn't have a problem with drinking. My problem was being sober, you know, which is the truth. And so why do I have trouble being sober? Well, because I lack the power. I lack the power to feel the way I think I want to feel. You know, I think most of us want, it's in reading, whichever one it is, it's reading number 3. You know, most of us want to feel patience and tolerance and kindness and love. I mean, it feels so much better than impatient, judgmental, which includes resentful, unkind or selfish, and frightened. I haven't met anybody yet that's going to tell you they enjoy feeling impatient, intolerant, unkind, and frightened. I haven't heard it. So the question is, why can't we feel the way we want to feel? And our answer is because you lack the power to do that. You are powerless over your own feelings. Whoa, you know, when we get to these 3 aspects, we're going to start with, the step says powerless over alcohol. It goes on to say we can't manage our own lives. I don't think most of us get that. I wish it said powerless over my own mind. You know, I'm powerless over my body. I'm powerless over my mind. And whenever we get to this God thing, we know we're powerless over God. And I don't think most of us are really prepared to look at our powerlessness, because I can at least tell you personally, when I experienced deep powerlessness over my own mind, it was as painful, and it lasted as long as I've experienced in my 3/4 of a century of life here on planet Earth. And the great gift that I got out of that was understanding that what I've got to do on a daily, moment-to-moment basis in order to not be sunk in self-pity, self-hatred, everything that we call depression. So So anyway, okay, so we're dealing with these three aspects of the disease: the body, the mind, and the spirit. And I want you to see that at the bottom of these columns is a word. So at the bottom of the physical column, it says sobriety. And at the bottom of the mental column, it says sanity. And at the bottom of the spiritual column, it says serenity. And this is very important, I think, because you know how often you hear, well, primary purpose of a meeting, stay sober and help another alcoholic achieve sobriety. This is the beginning. This is just the beginning of what we're doing. Getting sober and staying sober and not being too resentful about having to be sober, you know, that's the beginning. We move to this second column that puts sanity at the bottom. Well, for me, sanity means a whole, a healthy response to my life. Now, it's taken a while to understand that when I'm experiencing resentment and fear and remorse or self-pity around my selfish conduct, it's taken me a while to see that those are expressions of my insanity. And the question that immediately comes up is, do I have any power over that? Do I have any power over my resentments toward another person? My fears about my life, or my sense of remorse about how I've been. Do I have any can I not do that? And I'm trying to say I can't. I'm trying to say at 10 years sober, sinking into a deep depression, I could not do anything about it on the human level, with my mind or with my body. I saw psychiatrists and counselors and tried different physical, mental methodologies, and I tried 2 antidepressants and couldn't handle them, and powerless. So I'm challenging you, you know, can when you experience a resentment, whether it's for a slow driver or somebody that says something really stupid in an AA meeting, you know, do you know what to do when resentment shows up? Now, I believe that step 10 is one of the more powerful. Step 10 and step 11 are some of the most powerful pages in the book if you want to do something about what you're experiencing, because they tell you everything. They set out a whole way of life. And step 10 gives you a protocol for handling your resentment and your fear and your remorse. And that protocol is boom, 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 boom. 1, pray at once for removal. 2, share with somebody. 3, make amends if called for. 4, turn your mind to service. And at the end of step 10, it tells you the only thing you're actually supposed to be thinking about all day long is what it says. How can I best serve you? Thy will not mine be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. This is the proper use of the human will. What's the will? You know, I'm not really sure. The will for me is my ability to use my mind to form an intention and then to act on that intention to accomplish whatever goal it is that my mind has brought forth. And what this is saying is your only intention is supposed to be, how can I best serve thee? Well, my experience is I have spent most all of my life trying to serve my mind and my body. I've been trying to make my body comfortable, if not pleasurable, and I've been trying to make my mind feel okay. Instead of the way I've lived my life, well, you may not, my hair is on fire and the sky is falling, and it's up to me to save the world. You know, that's the way I've lived most of my life. And that's nowhere near patient, tolerant, kind, and loving. Nowhere near. And yet I would have told you, well, yeah, I want to be patient, tolerant, kind, and loving. Okay, I don't want to lose my track. So the protocol: pray at once for removal, share with somebody, make amends if called for, turn the mind to service. Boom, 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 boom. At the end, your primary purpose is to serve your creator. Step 10 also says your next function is to grow, G-R-O-W, not maintain, grow your understanding and your effectiveness. Well, I take that to be mental, mind, understanding, effectiveness, physical, behavioral effectiveness, which is service. That I'm effectively serving my creator. Okay, so the mental column, the word is sanity, and finally, the spiritual column, the word is serenity. But I'm gonna say, where serenity, I would have told you, was my real goal. It's not a goal for me. It's an indicator. It's telling me to what degree am I humbly relying on God and behaving the way I think God wants me to behave. And this lines up with the third step prayer. Relieve me of the bondage of self. Not so I can feel frickin' better, you know. It doesn't say that. Relieve me of the bondage of self that I may better do thy will. This is way back in step 3. I don't think I really understood this until recently. You know, I've still been living under the tyranny of my mind and my body in the human realm, trying to solve whatever mental or physical problem I felt I've had. And anyway, okay. So what I'm saying though is serenity is a result of how I live. And that number 5 in the readings, just to the extent, so that's like a dial, you know, a serenity indicator, just to the extent that I humbly rely on God and behave the way I think God wants me to behave, I will be enabled. Now, what that means is I ain't doing it. I ain't doing it on self-reliance. I will be enabled by spiritual power to experience serenity, which is patience, tolerance, kindness, and love, right smack dab in the middle, in the face of calamity. I'm a child of the 60s, the Vietnam War, all that stuff, on the leading edge of the baby boomers. And the 60s were a horrendous time, and there was all this, you know, Cuban Missile Crisis and all of that. And I think I can say to you that today, you know, 2020, 2021, 2022, there is more volatility and tension, which I would say is calamity in the world. It's happening in the like the war in Ukraine. It's happening in the financial markets. Inflation is a form of calamity. It's happening with our weather. You know, we got a lot of calamity going on. So this promise that just to the extent that I humbly rely on God and behave the way I think God wants me to behave, live the life that God wants me to live, not the life that my body and my mind want me to live. You know, it's very clear to me, my body and my mind have an agenda. And the agenda is to feel good at any and all costs. It's my body and my mind's agenda is not serving God. And yet it keeps promising me I will feel serene when I do this or do that. And those promises have all been broken. They have never come true for me. My body and my mind's promises have never come true. And that's what I think, for me anyway, when it says, first of all, it gives us that tremendous 3-line formula before the third step prayer. First of all, you got to quit playing God. You got to quit trying to arrange the lights and the scenery and the other actors in your own way so you can have a good experience. You got to quit it. You got to admit that your self-reliance has not worked. This is the beginning. This is the admission of powerlessness. Next, it says, it's the bottom of page 62, I'm pretty damn sure. Next, you've got to invite God in, even if you don't believe in God. This is one of the weird parts of this program. You don't have to believe in God. You just have to invite God in. And as we move through the steps, you got to make a little space for God. Because the fact is, when we're all so busy up in here, and we're busy unconsciously as well as consciously, that's why we have to go through this house cleaning process, why we say, trust God, clean house, help others. This is 6 words for saying what we do here. First, I got to quit playing God, using my self-reliance to play God. Next, I've got to invite God in, and we're given 3 relationships, but you can pick anything you want. We're given God as the director. I am the actor playing the role that God has assigned me. If I have any confusion about what that role is, all I got to do is look around. What am I doing? Where am I living? Who am I hanging out with? That's the role I've been assigned until I get another role, till I find something else to do. Invite God in as your director, you're the actor, as your principal and you're the agent, or employer and employee, and finally parent and you're the child. Well, no, I'm sorry, and a 4th one is friend, but you get anything you want, any relationship that you want. And I'll remind you, we were having trouble with personal relationships, the first of the bedevilments, and resentment is the #1 offender to those personal relationships. So if I'm powerless over my resentful mind, I'm pretty much screwed as far as relationships go. And if I'm trying to have a relationship with God, I don't know why I think it's going to work out any better than my relationships with other people. I think my relationships with people are a direct mirror of my relationship with God. I think when I'm patient, tolerant, kind, and loving with you, I'm being patient, tolerant, kind, and loving with God, or vice versa. Have you written out a resentment on God lately? Put God in the first column. All the things that are wrong with life that you think, God, this is you. If you were a better God, it wouldn't be this way. And then think about the areas of self that it affects. And finally get to the meat of the matter. Where are you? Where am I being selfish, dishonest, frightened? What frightens me about living in relationship with God? Okay, any rate, okay, I think I'm going to go to these columns and start filling them in. I just want to mention at the bottom, and this may not have shown up if you managed to print this out, but at the bottom is this little formula. It comes from, it starts in step 11 when it's talking about as we go through the day. What it says is, step 11's got these 3 parts. When we retire at night, boom, boom, boom. On awakening, boom, boom, boom. As we go through the day, step 11, part 3, we pause when agitated or doubtful, and we ask for the next right thought or action. That's the pause. That's what step 10 is for me. In the moment, I am pausing and I am asking, actually, I'm asking, how can I best serve in this situation I am in right now? How can I best serve thee? So I hoped to get step 10 underneath the pause, but you may not have it. It may have jumped to the next page. And step 11 is under the ask and listen. And step 12 is under the do, the action step. And what this little formula is saying is, if I will pause, step 10, do what it says to do, ask and listen. So that's the difference we're given between prayer and meditation. Prayer is me asking, what do you want me to do? And listen is me listening for guidance. And right away it's going to come up, I can't listen. I'm learning how to pause and ask, but I can't listen. And you know why? Because I got a lot of stuff going on up in here. All I hear is my own voice screaming at me that I'm powerless over. I can't even quiet it down. Which again is why we wind up having to go through this dreadful, tedious house cleaning process that doesn't stop with 5, it stops with 9. And we're promised that we're going to experience some kind of conscious contact that we don't doubt halfway through 9. Pause, ask and listen, and do. And do is directed. Pause is quit playing God. Ask and listen is invite God in. Do is directed. Step 12. And we're promised that if we do those 3 things, pause, ask and listen, and do, we will experience serenity right in the midst of the human calamity. So go to do the reverse. If I am not experiencing serenity right here and right now, which part of that formula am I not doing? Am I not doing as I'm guided to do? Am I not listening so I can't actually be guided into what to do because I can't hear anything but my own voice? Or am I unable to pause? I'm so caught up, or I don't know what I can pause, but I don't know what to ask for. And I'm telling you, if you ever get confused about what am I to ask for, step 10 says, how can I best serve thee? This is the question I'm supposed to ask. How can I best serve thee? I know it sounds exalted and, religious and all that kind of stuff, but that's what our book says. How can I best serve thee? Something like every day, step 10, every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will for us into everything that we think, say, and do. Ooh, a tall order. And then we're promised that just to the extent that I do that, I will experience serenity instead of calamity or in the midst of the calamity. You think I'm ever going to get to column 1 here, the physical column? Okay. Silkworth calls it an allergy, abnormal reaction. Normal reaction to alcohol is to drink 1 or 2 and stop, whether the glass is half full or empty. Stop. Symptom, the phenomenon of craving. I know I've got an abnormal reaction to alcohol because most people do not experience, if I take one drink, I gotta take more. Treatment, abstinence. The only thing we got is abstinence. I cannot take the first drink. Promises of treatment. No hangovers, no handcuffs, no car crashes, no fights with other people, no blackouts. Physical things. And the goal is sobriety. Mental. And all of these things, the task is for you to find words and ideas that work for you. And we're given lots of different things. For me, the name of the mental condition that prevents my recovery is strange mental blank spot. Because I'm one of those that had a pretty good life. I didn't get into serious trouble. Probably could say I got into relationship trouble, but I didn't get into other kinds of trouble the way a lot of us do. And so it's Fred that uses that, and I'll remind you that Fred, it's more about alcoholism. He's the one that says, quite as important was the discovery that spiritual principles would solve all my problems. And he doesn't have many problems. He's living a good old life. I have since been brought into a way of living infinitely more satisfying and, I hope, more useful than the life I lived before, which was by no means a bad one. And how he wouldn't trade his worst moments sober for his best moments drunk. It's really quite a statement, right at the end of More About Alcoholism Before There Is a Solution. He's the one that in those strange mental blank spots where he could not see that one drink meant blackout. He's the one that flies back to New York City, doesn't see his wife at the airfield, hops in a cab and wanders around New York for a week with no idea where he was or what he did. A professional, a successful professional. All right, symptom. Well, I'm pretty sure it's page 24. It says we are unable to recall at certain times the memory of the suffering and humiliation of the last time we took the first drink. And then it says in the deep down, a little bit below that, there is a complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps us from putting our hand on a hot stove. Most of us, at some point or other, touched a hot stove of some kind, and most of us never did it again. And most of us got burned by the first drink over and over and over again. Treatment. Well, in this interpretation of this work, the treatment for the mental part of the condition is the self-examination, the self-disclosure, praying for removal of character defects, and making amends for the harmful effects of those character defects. This is our treatment for the mental condition that we are powerless over. This is how we gain power over our powerlessness, over our resentments and our fears and our sense of remorse. And the promises of treatment, third step promises, fourth step promises, fifth step promises, and ninth step promises. They're all over there. Okay, spiritual. And I'm also trying to tie this into the physical represents the meetings of the physical meetings of the fellowship. The mental part is the recovery that we go through one-on-one with another alcoholic. And the spiritual represents service. And lately I've been reading a lot of old time material, and part of the way they approach this stuff is that my ultimate job or primary purpose is responding to God's call for my service. And we all have a different way of doing that. But it's become really a powerful idea for me that if I am going to live out, if every day is a day when I must carry the vision of God's will for me, I got to know what that vision is. And that's my call to service, how I'm going to be in the world. It doesn't mean service to AA. I mean, it does. Hopefully that service will show up in AA. But this is a bigger picture than just the fellowship. All right, name. Well, spiritual malady is one. For me, I'm starting to say agnostic. I don't have a word to describe my spiritual condition is agnostic. I don't have a working, functional relationship with what we typically call God or higher power. I believe in it. I've answered yes to step 2. Do you believe in, or are you even willing to believe in? It's another matter. Do I believe that power can heal me? That takes some work to believe that power can heal me. So whatever it is, you could say, well, so then you get to the symptom. How do I know, if I know the phenomenon of craving tells me I'm an abnormal drinker, and a strange mental blank spot tells me that I'm not sane, or that I have this mental condition where I'm not being completely honest about my life. What's the symptom of the spiritual malady, of not having a relationship with God? Well, for me, the best word I can come up with is fear. The fact that I fear tells me I'm not able to trust and rely on God. Am I able to trust and rely on God? Well, a lot more than I used to be able to. Do I trust and rely? Have I abandoned myself to God's care and protection? No. I'm trying. I hold it out as a worthy idea. I know I'd be more comfortable, because this is the thing that page 68 says that has just been huge for me. It says, I experience fear because of the failure of my self-reliance. That's why I fear, because I know I lack power that I get from self-reliance to solve whatever problem it is I think I have. And my fear is mostly I'm going to suffer and I can't handle it. My fear is I'm going to experience mental or physical anguish and I can't handle it, or I don't want to experience it. So the treatment is steps 10, 11, and 12 all the time, which is no more than pause, ask, and listen, and do. So this is all, this is all before we have one more job before we go to the doctor's opinion. And then all we're going to be doing the whole rest of the time is running through this stuff, repeating it, fleshing it out more. But at least for me, the bottom line, as they say, is 10, 11, and 12 all the time, in my effort to grow in understanding and effectiveness, the meaning and purpose of my life, to determine what is my Creator's will for me. I know I've probably said it too much, but today I can say to you, body, mind, and spirit, or body, mind, and soul, are real things for me. 5 years ago, if you said, well, how's your soul feel about what you're doing? I probably would have said, well, better, but less aware of my soul and my soul's desire to live in closer connection with its creator. And my body and my mind are the vehicles for that. Where my life has been totally about my mind and my body and trying to feel better than I did. You know, from 8 years old, 9 years old, I just was plagued by, how did I get here? You know, what am I supposed to do here? What happens after I die? And then the hardest one and the biggest one, why can't I feel better than I do? You know, Chuck Chamberlain says this thing that is awesome about, in A New Pair of Glasses, these three attributes that are so typical for us alcoholics. One is where we are emotionally more sensitive than most people. We feel pain more deeply. We feel things more, a greater capacity for feeling than average. He said that's not to be confused with emotional immaturity, which we are emotionally immature, but it's just saying part of the problem is we feel things more deeply than most people. The second thing was a deep interior awareness that life is supposed to be. That's important, supposed to be a deep and a beautiful, loving, kind thing, something, I'm not getting the words right, but a beautiful, loving, miraculous experience, just being alive. That we have this awareness that this is the way, this is what life is supposed to be about. And Jesus would call it the kingdom. You know, I'm living in the kingdom in love and serenity, knowing that I am okay and I'm eternal or whatever. But that's not what we're experiencing in the calamity of our life. I felt this at 10 years old, sitting around the dinner table when things would start off okay, and then my father would, something would set him off and it'd turn into a you-know-what show. And I just knew somewhere down deep, it's not supposed, this is not what a family is supposed to be about. This is not the way I hated school. And then the third characteristic, beside a greater capacity for feeling, a deep interior awareness that life is supposed to be a big and a good and a beautiful, loving thing, was the relentless desire to want things to be better. He calls it perfectionism. Relentless, most of us are relentless perfectionists. It's never good enough. It's never good enough. We always want it better. All right, so I'm just trying to say that this, I've left out the circle. So the circle really represents step 11. The circle is getting serious about prayer and meditation, making prayer a part of your waking life. Well, our sleeping life. You know, if you want to retire at night, you do this stuff. And the idea is that this is especially for people that go to meetings, and then that's pretty much all they do. They haven't asked anybody to sponsor them. They are not involved in one-to-ones, and they're not involved in service. They just go to meetings. And if you were trying to do that as a triangle, it'd be a triangle, you know, leaning way over on the unity side and not much to the recovery and service side. And you couldn't get a circle in it. You know, this is a very stable, balanced image of the circle and then that triangle, equilateral triangle inside. And you can use that as a way, how it works says we don't fail if we thoroughly follow this path. Well, what's thoroughly follow this path means? It means meetings, one-on-one recovery work, service, trying to determine what our service is, and it is all surrounded by this circle of prayer and meditation that we are to do in the evening, we are to do in the morning, and we are to do all through the day. Well, anytime we're, if you're having a serene day, you don't have to pause. Things will be going good. But we pause when agitated or doubtful. Okay, I'm gonna ring this gong, and Jennifer's gonna stop the recording, and we'll have some open discussion, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.